I set out to make a little digital piece podcast thing, and I ended up trying to tackle the main questions of life. I think I nailed it. I discovered an odd quirk in the world that everyone knows about, but I'll just give you one example, and then I'll relate it to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Me and my buddies wanted a guy's kind of weekend. We didn't really commit to the whole weekend, just kind of a guy's afternoon. So we said, you know what is a guy thing to do? Catch a shark. Great. Let's go catch a shark. So we booked a shark catching boat. And if you want to catch a shark, you got to go out very early in the morning. So we go to Rhode Island or Massachusetts or somewhere. And we're there with the shark catching guy. Me and my buddies, they've got like a cooler full of beer. We're like, this is going to be great. We're going to be out there on the open sea catching sharks. Awesome. We see an old salty dog come in and talk to our captain. Not a real dog, a name for an old-timey sailor. He's like, you're going out in this, but it's super foggy. He's like, yeah, you know, these guys are going to catch sharks. And we're like, we're going to catch sharks. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, well, it's weird. That old salty dog is not too confident going out in this fog. So we get on, we're headed out. So far, so good. We throw some hooks over because you got to catch some bluefish. The bluefish are chomping away. We bring in the bluefish, you're chopping them up, you're throwing them in the chum. Now we're getting way out to the shark-infested waters of New England. Oh my goodness gracious. Then this guy takes a big 5-gallon bucket full of blood, throwing the bluefish in there. We're throwing it overboard and everyone's having a blast. Then my brother, who is quite seafaring, starts to just get quiet. So that's strange, he's getting quiet. And then the fog starts to roll in. What's going on here with the fog? Brother's quiet. Not good. Bah! Barfing off the side of the boat. Horrible. I said, oh my goodness, my brother's barfing? My other buddy, boom, off the side of the boat. Not in the water, but he's throwing up off the side of the boat. And I'm looking around like, well, this is not good for old KW. I feel okay now, but The sea captain is like playing the Jaws music. Darn it. Like, can you kill the music, buddy? We're vomiting on your boat. Then I start throwing up. My one buddy, Eli's not throwing up. He took a Dramamine wisely. So he's just sitting there watching this. We're not catching any sharks. We are just vomiting in the water. And we're having these weird conversations like, does the vomit attract them? Or does blood attract? You know, it's a disaster. We have to lay down. It doesn't go away. It's just the worst. Just being seasick is the absolute worst. We're like, can we please leave? We're not catching any sharks. Also, if you ever jumped in the water and you were ever thinking like, ooh, there might be sharks here. There's not, at least in New England. Maybe there is, but there wasn't that day. I'm no longer afraid of sharks. Not that I ever was. I was. I mean, everyone's a little scared. We get back to dry land. The fog clears. We get off the boat. We have lunch. And it may have been 3 or 4 of the worst hours of my life. Loved it. It was absolutely great. We still talk about it, how much of a disaster it was. So that's the odd quirk in the world, that sometimes the worst stuff, actually awesome. But this is how I relate it to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, after he just got blown out in the Super Bowl.
Anytime you lose a Super Bowl, it's the worst feeling in the world. They'll stick with you the rest of your career.
So same with Patrick Mahomes. He's like, that was the worst, but also the best. Because all of a sudden, I'll be better than ever. Makes sense. Because the worst is the best. That's the weird quirk that I was trying to figure out, that I was like wrestling with last night. And who'd he lose to? Jalen Hurts. His screensaver was his previous loss to the Chiefs because he wanted to remind himself that it was the worst, which made him better, which then made him win the Super Bowl. And that screensaver stuff does work. On my screensaver, a picture of my buddy barfing. No, it's my kids from me, but it would be funny if it's just my buddy. Okay, so here's the other thing. The best, slightly overrated, okay? So the worst is the best, but the best is slightly overrated. There's another video of Patrick Mahomes after last year's Super Bowl telling Chris Jones, you're not going anywhere, because Chris Jones had a little bit of a contract dispute. So Mahomes wanted to keep Chris Jones. He's like, we're going to go for 3. No one's ever gotten 3. So the confetti is still all over the field, and Mahomes has already moved on to the ultimate goal of most football players' lives. He's already passed it. He's already to next year. So here's what he said about losing the Super Bowl this year, which I think relates to that.
You have to capitalize on these, and they hurt probably more than the wins feel good.
It makes sense, but it's odd. It's like if you had a great dinner, huge steak dinner, like one of the best dinners of your life, and the waiter comes over and the waiter's finely dressed because it's such a nice restaurant, and you just had this huge ribeye. You're like, that was so good. He's like, what would you like for dessert? We have this creme brulee. And you're like, you know what? Another steak. I'm not satiated by what I just did. I need it again. That's not great. That's not a perfect mindset to be in. And a lot of times it's just dismissed as, well, that's the killer instinct. And that's, Nick Saban would start recruiting 20 minutes after the national championship, which is fair, but I think it comes with a consequence. A.J. Brown, Super Bowl champion, was having a blast. His Instagram, he wrote the other day, after a few days, I've had time to reflect on being a champion. I tried to feel how everyone made it seem to be a champion, and unfortunately, it was short-lived. 2 days. So A.J. Brown worked his whole life to get to this moment and had 2 days of having a blast. Then he's like, all right, what's the next thing? And he said, good question, Wilds. I'll answer that for you. My thrill for this game comes when I dominate. It's the hunt that does it for me. So losing is the worst. And if you win, if you're Patrick Mahomes, you start thinking about the next one. If you win and you're A.J. Brown, you're happy for 2 days. And then you start thinking about how you want to dominate and really be in the moment. So that's where I got to this part. Okay. So now we don't know what to do. If you lose, it's the worst. If you win, it's not great. So what's going on in this world? So here's what I came up with. It's not that revolutionary, but I think it's interesting. It's what your, little league coach used to tell you. Just go out there and have fun. And it seems like a platitude, but maybe it's the main key to everything, ? I did a little consulting job for this soccer company. They were putting on soccer games in North America, Asia. So one of the guys who was there, I think he ran some youth programs. I didn't mean to get into the org chart of the place. Moral of the story, I consulted for a soccer company. I talked to a guy who ran a bunch of soccer camps, and I coincidentally at the time was coaching my son Billy's soccer team. I was getting ready to start, but I had never coached a soccer team. And I was like, hey, can you give me some hints on what to do? And I thought he was going to give me these very interesting drills because he was from England. Like, oh, they must have a bunch of interesting drills. And he said, well, your number one goal is to make sure everyone has fun. And I was like, yeah, of course. But, give me the good drills. He's like, but that's the real goal. And he had real numbers behind participation rates of youth sports dropping. And the number one reason is people aren't having fun. Kids aren't having fun. It just becomes too goal-oriented or it becomes too drill-based. It's like the number one question you should ask your kids after a game is, did they have fun? And I always felt like that was in conflict with success. And this kind of made me rethink it this Chiefs season. If I asked you a few years ago, what's the most fun team to watch in the NFL, or maybe all sports at some point, I think the unanimous answer would be the Chiefs. High-flying, fun, exciting, explosive offense. It was just great. And nothing encapsulated that more than this famous snow globe play. And here was Mahomes' quote after that specific game, because that play was the talk of the league. We go out there and we try to get the best out every single day, but the coaches let us have fun. That's what keeps us going. We built this culture of let's go out there and practice, have a great time doing it, enjoy it, have fun, but at the same time, let's be great. That stuff was here before I even got here. I'm just glad I'm in this organization and I get to do it every single day. Fun is a key component of their success. Last year, after winning they win the Super Bowl, win Super Bowl again. This is Mahomes' quote from this summer going into this year. He's back-to-back champion.
The end result was awesome, but I think a lot of us still have a weird feeling in our mouth because we really didn't play the football the way we wanted to play all year long, and it wasn't fun. Every single week having to try to just continue to get better and better, and results not paying off the way you wanted to. It wasn't a lot of fun.
Okay, so now the fun has dwindled, but you do have 2 championships. So then Mahomes goes into this year, and we expected off of that quote, because we talked about it, we're like, Mahomes is going to light it up now. He's got the championships. Now it's time to let loose. So what happened? 1 more games, completions down, attempts down, yards down, touchdowns down, yards per game obviously down. Games were close. Fourth quarter comebacks, 5. There was 1 the previous year. Game-winning drive, 7. I guess that's fun. But tight games aren't as fun as blowouts. And I always thought that Nick had a point where because the Chiefs are trying to do something unprecedented, he said they practiced, which I told him downstairs. A slightly obnoxious take, but not totally wrong. But in the course of that practicing and saving everything for the future, I'm making the argument that the fun was kind of lost, that there weren't any trick plays, that there weren't any, hey, you know what? Substitute teacher, put your books away. We're going to watch a movie. Oh, bring it. Roll in the thing. Roll. I talked to the AV teacher, and we're rolling in. We're going to watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
They bought it.
So I think there needs to be more fun in the Chiefs. So going into next year, the Chiefs also have to worry about the Super Bowl hangover, where Eagles lost. They were winning games, but it was kind of miserable. Then the supernatural funk hit. They were bad. 49ers lost, rough schedule, injuries, didn't even make the playoffs. And everyone's trying to figure out, hey, what happens from a Super Bowl hangover? And it's usually some combination of longer season, injuries, the schedule, an emotional letdown. I'm going to posit that when you come up short, I do think that great athletes decide to rededicate themselves and work harder and maybe strip away some of the fun that they think is in conflict with success. So for the next year, as Mahomes goes back into the lab and tries to win another Super Bowl, I think he should add a little bit more fun back into his game. I think he wants to, and I think that this year proves that the Chiefs need to have fun to succeed. And if Travis Kelce wants to come back, it's not about goal setting or being there for his teammates or his long-term future or his relationships or his other endeavors. I think he really needs to look at himself in the mirror and say, was this fun? Was this year fun? Is this next year going to be fun? And having fun is the key to success. And don't go shark fishing. Not fun is the worst.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.